This podcast contains discussions of violent and disturbing content that may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is strongly advised. The views and opinions expressed are for informational and entertainment purposes only and do not necessarily reflect those of the podcast's creators, hosts, or affiliated parties. If you or someone you know is in need of support, please reach out to a qualified mental health professional. This week's episode is brought to you by listeners like you, the ones who stay even when the silence feels a little too close and the shadows lean in to listen with you. Thank you for still being here. On this episode of the podcast, the kidnapper then demands that the prime minister, right, Michael Callow, have sex with a pig on live television. So when do he make sure say him secure the position that him holding, making sure that him, some people love talk about having all the cards. This kidnapper had all the cards, right? He was very. That's not even the half of it. Buckle up. The ride's just getting temporal.
Prepare for warp speed as we embark on a voyage through the vast expanse of science fiction in movies and television series. From distant planets to alien civilizations, we delve into the heart of the unknown, unraveling the tales that have captivated audiences for generations. Get ready to unlock the secrets of the universe on Code Flix.
Welcome to Code Flix, where we analyze sci-fi and fantasy TV shows and movies through the lens of reality. I'm your host, Andre Bonner, and today I unpack Black Mirror, Season 1, Technology, Consequences, and the Dark Reflection of Society. Is Black Mirror simply reflecting human life back at us? Or is it showing us an alternate reality that's closer than we like to admit? For those familiar with The Twilight Zone, the series carries that same unsettling energy, but updated for the digital age. Instead of supernatural twists, Black Mirror focuses on technology, media, obsession, and the darker corners of modern society. Each episode takes us on a completely different journey, exploring worlds that feel so futuristic and disturbingly believable. The situations may seem extreme, but that's what makes the series so effective. It forces us to confront how close fiction can come to reality. Season 1 only contains 3 episodes, but every single one leaves a lasting impression. Sharp, short, and deeply thought-provoking. It's a season that provides quality more than quantity. So let's stare into the Black Mirror and see what it reflects back at us. Black Mirror is a British anthology television series created by Charlie Brooker. Most episodes are speculative fiction set in near-future dystopias containing sci-fi technology. The series is inspired by The Twilight Zone and uses the themes of technology and media to comment on contemporary social issues. Most episodes are written by Brooker, with involvement by the executive producer, Annabelle Jones. There are 33 episodes in 7 series and 1 special, In addition to the interactive film Black Mirror Bandersnatch 2018, the first two series aired on the British network Channel 4 in 2011 and 2013, respectively, as did the 2014 special White Christmas. The program then moved to Netflix, where five further series aired in 2016, 2017, 2019, 2023, and 2025. An eighth series is in development. Two related webisode series were produced by Netflix, and a companion book to the first four series. Inside Black Mirror was published in 2018. Soundtracks to many episodes have been released as albums. Black Mirror is considered by some reviewers to be one of the best television series of 2010s. While some critics have found the formulaic morality themes of the series obvious or cited declining quality, the program won the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Television Movie 3 times consecutively for San Junipero, USS Callisto, and Bandersnatch. Black Mirror, along with American Horror Story and Inside Number 9, has been credited with reviving the anthology television format, and a number of episodes have been deemed prescient by the media. For those of you who have not watched this series before or might be introduced to it via this podcast, season 1 of Black Mirror is a dark and thought-provoking sci-fi anthology that explores how technology can reshape and sometimes distort modern society and human behavior. Right? So what stands out in all of this is the anthology format, right? So you can watch each episode independently and come to enjoy it or understand it on its own. There is a lot of near future sci-fi. The technology feels realistic and it's uncomfortably close to what we perceive as modern life. There's a psychological and social commentary layer to it as well, especially with the first episode that we're going to be speaking about. Instead of focusing on action, the series explores some human flaws, media obsession, social pressure, and digital addiction. Now, there is a lot of dark tones to it, which is why some persons might not quite like it. The episodes often end with an unsettling and morally complex outcome. So it's no happy ending, like probably when you watch Futurama, if you're familiar with those animations. Now, as I mentioned, season 1 has 3 episodes. We have the national anthem. It is a shocking political crisis test of power, with media, public pressure, and the viral culture that we are a part of, right? In a lot of ways. Then we have 15 Million Merits, which is a dystopian future where people live through screens and entertainment control society. The entire history of you is about a technology that is able to record memories, which leads to some issues of trust, jealousy, and relationships are totally changed forever. So season 1, it asks a simple but disturbing question. What happens when human weaknesses meet powerful technology? Why new fans will love it? The series feels intelligent, unpredictable, and deeply relevant to modern life. Even years later now, many of its ideas are so eerily accurate, making Black Mirror one of the most influential modern sci-fi shows. In short, season one is sharp, unsettling introduction to a world where technology doesn't create monsters, it reveals the ones already inside us. So these are my personal insights and interpretations of Black Mirror Season 1, including some of my favorite moments, themes, and characters. So this series, as I would have mentioned earlier, it's has a lot of dark elements to it, some things that shed light on morality, some things that are so close to technology in such a way that, you know, you just have to just say, this is definitely where we're headed, or this is definitely what is happening to us right now. So when I first came upon Black Mirror overall as a series on Netflix, I didn't realize at the time, probably never pay attention or something. But when I go on, I didn't see which series I was watching, which season I was watching. And I started with the most current season at the time. I think it was around 2018, around the same time when Bandersnatch came out. So I started watching the series around that time. And, things weren't really making sense to me. I watch it on and off, not like every day but it was really addictive in terms of bringing me back and wanting to see more and trying to understand overall what this series was trying to convey in its messaging. So, of course, obviously, when I, started the podcast, I even thought about doing this as one of the very first episodes of the podcast. But then, things happen and I changed my mind. And now I'm doing this podcast episode about it. And I realized that I had not watched season 1. And so, of course, long story short, I watched it and I was still as surprised and still had the same feelings I felt initially watching the one that I didn't even know what series I was watching at the time. But yeah, that's just me prefacing there that this series, no matter where you start, it will pull you in, right? It will pull you in for good reasons. There are a lot of elements that are a little bit uncomfortable, especially because it's so close to what we are, as human beings doing and, participating in. So, all I have to say to you is just sit back and relax and just listen, right? And if you're not sitting back, if you're taking a run or wherever you are listening to this podcast, just take some time to take in what I say about it. And, if you don't like it, go and watch the series, right? Or you could go and watch the series, and come back and say, all right, listen to what Andrea has said about it. And then you can agree or disagree with me in different ways. So, obviously, this series, this season is actually 3 episodes long, and for good reason. There was this whole thing about the way how it was supposed to be and whatever and thing. But the episodes are long, but they are impactful, right? Episode 1, the national anthem, or as I like to call it, and this is going to be a recurring segment on my, when I do series, I'm going to find some nice little titles that I would reframe it based on what I watch and how I understand it. Yeah. So, episode 1, How to a Pig, right? So, in this episode, we have Princess Susanna, right, who is a member of the British royal family. Of course, there isn't a Princess Susanna yet, or one that we know of, right? But she's kidnapped for
some reason, right? The kidnapper then demands that the prime minister, right, Michael Callow, have sex with a pig on live television. So it when do he make sure say him secure the position that him holding, making sure that him, some people love talk about having all the cards. This kidnapper had all the cards, right? He was very clear on instructions, and he makes sure said there was no way for the prime minister or anybody in his government to be able to do anything. Like, for instance, there is them trying to subdue it on the news, making sure that the news outlets didn't cover it, sending out this thing them call like a red notice or something like that, where them basically say, hey, don't read this on news, don't make don't put it out there in the public. But what he did, he put it out on the internet. He put it on the internet. Can you believe it? And so this, breaks out into this big thing in Britain where, social media, people are covering it now. The news realize, hey, it's out of our control. We can't do anything. They're still under orders, but, what I'm saying, might as well them try to cover it. So you have some bumbling with the news people. You have a journalist lady, she end up going the situation. They're trying to find where where they think they located the kidnapper, right? The location and the kidnapper, and so they're going in trying to get the kidnapper, and the journalist is following the police and thing. Kind of reminds me of that situation in the 1970s Olympic Games where they didn't handle that situation well because it went over the public, and when the hostages were watching it on TV, I guess with them kidnapper, them realized they had special forces coming in on them, right? So it mirrored that, right? As well as it mirrored other instances in history. But that stood out to me when I was watching the episode. I was like, oh my, this is what actually happened, right? And so, yeah, the journalists get injured, but they didn't find the kidnapper. In this case, the kidnapper had been a step ahead of them all along and was using some kind of routing technology to route the signals so that, they didn't know where it was coming from. And of course, because of this, the kidnapper decides to cut off a finger and mail it to one journalist, right? One of the news station, them get it actually in the production section, and the man opened the thing and he's surprised. This is the whole thing, right? So the kidnapper, put out a message. He say, hey, listen, this ago be your last warning, right? With the finger that has been mailed, and don't do anything else like that. All right, so they say, all right, we can't do that and thing. So unbeknownst to the minister, who is trying to find some way to get the princess back, one of his cabinet members or one of him aides trying to, find a way for him out of the situation, decides to fake the video that he's supposed to do with the sex and the pig, right? With a professional actor and thing and whatever. And that goes bumbling again because journalists find out because somebody snap a photo, somebody who was there does snap a photo, send it to a journalist, and then the journalist then publish it, say, oh, say, the man, I gonna be the one who are going to, act as the prime minister in, all of these things. Like, you can't do those things. You know what I'm saying? No way. It's just infuriating just thinking about it, right? So after, all of this happens and thing, and, basically them realizing that and Carlo finding out and thing, they, him just reluctantly have to agree for go ahead with it, right? And the broadcast is going to go out to over 1 billion people, right? Now we keep seeing this man, right, watching TV and stuff and thing. And there was this one point where, I was wondering who this guy was. I didn't know. You know what I'm saying? You're seeing some people watching TV, and you're seeing different areas in Britain where people are watching TV, and I watch the coverage of what is going on. But this man stood out because he is a famous artist, and he is actually the kidnapper, right? He releases Princess Susanna, right? Because by the time Carlo decide to actually do it, they done release her, but they never know. So when Carlo actually go in and do the deed, they find that she was released and find out say, she was released right before they actually do the broadcast, right? And then we see the same guy, the kidnapper guy, without the finger that was mailed was his finger, because he cut off his own finger and not harm Princess Susanna. He hung himself, right? Probably disgrace take him, or he never realized what he did was gonna be that bad. The news reported that how probably he did it because this was his form of art or some foolishness to that effect. Now, of course, after Carlo do this, is and people are all over the place were like, when they watch it and think, people didn't turn away. People were literally watching him doing it, right? Yeah, and it didn't. Trust me, it looked very crazy how that was happening. A year later, we see where he's able to maintain a good approval rating and thing. However, the relationship with his wife has been irreparably damaged. Yeah. I mean, you can see it call out to his wife, and she's like, no, I can't deal with it. And she's gone. You know what I'm saying? And I'm guessing it's more of her trying to just keep that, relationship going after what happened, rather than for say, all right, she's out of there, she's gonna divorce him. Because I'm like, all right, if you don't want to be in it, just divorce him. But, knowing that's how the British would operate in that way, right? Yeah, I mean, this episode just had me like, what was that? I mean, could this really happen? That's what it kept me, thinking, like, could this literally happen? Could they literally find some way to do something like this? It could possibly happen. And what would we do? What would be the reaction? That is what I was thinking. Yeah. Episode 2, 15 million merits. Boy, what am I have to say about that one here? What do I have to say? But my title for this episode is Screaming at the Screen. Right? And you're going to see why I say that, right? So we have this gentleman, dark-skinned Negro gentleman named Bing. And we can see it's like a future society where majority of the people them in that society are basically using screens. There's, what I'm saying, them literally only interact with other people when they come out of basically them. I would call it a pod, but it's like a room basically, because the entire walls in the room are covered with screens, right? And then basically are, ride on stationary bikes basically, and it's to generate power. So maybe there is some kind of it's probably some post-apocalyptic world where something has happened, right? Because we don't see outside, we don't know what's outside society is like. We just see inside with screens everywhere, right? And I say everywhere, even in the bathroom, right? And you're fed with ads, same way like how you're being fed with ads on your device, and you're watching what you want to watch. You can skip through it and thing, and you do gestures with your hand and all of those things, right? And you're given merits based on certain things that you do. So if you watch ads, you get merits. If you watch certain things, or you play a game and you win in the game, you win credits. If you are doing there's a point where the bike in activity is also earning you merits, right? And it earns you a lot of merits because you're actually generating power, right? So you can even watch while you ride. So basically, I watch while I ride. Now, one day, he hears one girl sing in the bathroom, right? And because the bathroom is actually used, it's a unisex bathroom, so it's used by both men and women, right? And convince her to enter one talent show, right? Named Hot Shot, right? And that's something that he has been seeing recently on his feeds, right? Because, yeah, they basically have been giving him feeds and all of those things. Now, he proposed it to her, basically say him can pay for her to enter the competition, right? And thing. Now, him a tell her, say, him would give her 50 million merits. And I tell her, say, oh, the merits then come from his dead brother, which we know is a lie because we see is real. The amount of credits him have is actually 15 million merits plus something. So him really don't have much. Basically, but I give her almost everything that he has earned so far. So he's willing to give this girl that him basically just have meet based on how she sing an opportunity to sing in our contest, right? Now, she sing one song. It's anyone who knows what love will understand, right? And when time, she gets in front of the judges, right? Because there's a whole lot of different things I'm kind of skipping and leaving out. But yeah, when she gets in front of the judges, right? The way how the judges them behave is almost like, when you watch like American Idol or one of them reality TV shows where, people are trying to make it big in show business, right? And they're behaving as if the singing alone or the raw talent is not enough. That she has to do more. And that more means her showing her body, doing pornos, and all of those things. Yeah, and I mentioned that because that is part of the thing that he gets. Him get them kind of feed there and them thing there, right? We'll be right back after these messages.
This podcast isn't driven by algorithms. No monetization, no invisible corporation forming your attention span for data. Just stories, questions, and the uncomfortable feeling that sci-fi stopped being fiction a long time ago. Every listen feeds a signal. Every follow keeps the screen glowing a little longer. And every time you share it with a friend or colleague, another person wakes up to just how strange this world has become. If an episode made you pause before unlocking your phone or stare a little too long at that reflection in the black screen, then leave a comment. Let me know there's still a human on the other side of the device. Because the scariest part of the future is how familiar it already feels.
So then basically they are dung panar, and she was kind of hesitant. She wasn't really responding. She was just kind of surprised that they were basically mentioning that to her. And eventually, them wear her down because them basically I tell her, say, well, we can change your life, You don't have to ride a bike anymore, you know what I'm saying? Because, we're gonna make your life better, that kind of thing. So of course, what she does, like most people would consider at that point, if given certain opportunity like that, she does it, right? So she goes, right? Later on, being in a room and him see advertisement that come up and him try to skip it. Now, before him did give up him 50 million credits, I have to mention this part because it's important. When him skip the ad, he loses certain merits, right? A certain amount of merits them take away from you when you skip ads. So this time, because he doesn't have much merits, him can't skip, right? So he ends up seeing her in the ad and it torments him. Because the thing is, it's not like I can look away, because that's another thing too. It's almost like a violation. If you look away, it tells you, say, watch screen, watch screen. You have to be watching the screen. You know what I'm saying? You have to be watching the screen. So after that, because him have so little merits, him have to scrounge around. When him go for ride the bike, him have to try to get him merits up. Him can't afford to get anything, because before him would have be able to get good food and all of that, Him have to wait around until other persons who have eaten and probably no one them, them what left and go take it and eat, And if work, make back 50 million merits, right? Him ride the bike and thing, day by day until so till him get back the merits and stuff. And then him enter the same competition, right? Because we saw him like every day when he went back to his room, he would be practicing to dance. So at we see him practicing to dance. I know that was the next thing that he was gonna do because he was so upset and he did have some vengeance in him eye, right? And I thought that when because he had broken one of the screens and the glass came out and he took the glass out and looked at it, I thought that he was planning to use that against someone. I never know say himself. Because he goes into the competition, right? He gets in front of the judges, right? And I should have mentioned this earlier. Before you get in front of the judges, you have to wait like a good time, right? I mean, like sometimes weeks, right? You have to you go to the competition place and you stand up there or you run around there until them ready for you, right? And you don't know how long you've been waiting there, but say when your time come or your time come. So you go stand up in front of them, him start dance and thing, and they're impressed by his dancing. And then when him done, him take out the glass and them see him take out the glass and thing and him say, don't come any closer. Me about to juke myself with it. Him go stab himself with it for commit suicide on stage in front of them. But before me go, me have one thing to say. And him start to tell them off. It almost kind of make, me feel a way about it because as a podcast personality, and the type of person I am, if you watch this episode and don't come back from it realizing that it's speaking about someone like me, then you don't understand, right? Yeah, so then basically after him plead out everything we have to tell them and tell them how bad things are and they must look and that society is just terrible, right? The judge give him one show so that him can appear on that show because we next see him on people's screens, other people who are riding bikes and doing things. We see him on those screens with his glass in hand at his neck, and he's like, telling them the same thing over and over. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. I mean, this was so realistic. This made me feel like me, it a top or others, not just me, but because I can recognize it in myself. And I'm like, this is what I do. I shout into a mic every week to get people to understand certain things and to learn certain things. And some people might skip away. Some people might start and be like, and skip, right? But there are a few of you that are listening. And we're thankful for that, at least. Just like being is thankful for people them at the end of when him done guy him just switch it up at the end, like him just say, thank you for watching that thing, and then him done. And when him done stream, him put on him glass, and then him enjoy him orange juice. Well, I don't really drink orange juice still, so but I would, when I'm finished, I would drink some water, right? Could clear my throat. I wish I say, I'm refreshed for the next recording of the episodes. Yeah. There are some other things I didn't mention as well, but like it's so mirror society. I'm just saying, if you have not watched this series, go and watch it. Go and watch it. Don't just listen to what I have to say. I want you to listen to what I have to say, okay? But don't just listen to me alone. Go and watch it, and then you come back and listen it, right? Yeah. Episode 3, The Entire History of You. Or as I like to call it, Blank Slate. I don't know what happened in there. Now, one of my favorite actors, and it's because she appeared in Doctor Who as the Doctor, right? Jodie Whittaker. And this was probably around the same time when she would have been doing a lot of good roles. And so them basically, take her over into the Doctor Who universe. But yeah, this episode, how do I put it? Basically, humanity has developed the ability to have like a device that they can implant called a grain behind the ear, and it basically allows them to be able to record memories, and you can, it's almost like a VCR for your memories. So you can watch, you can scroll through, and if you were looking at something but you weren't pretty sure of what you were looking at and you turn away, you can always go back, zoom and enhance. Real sci-fi technology, okay? All right. So this gentleman named Liam, right? We see him in the episode. I remember him going to an interview, and this is why it's so good to have a technology like this, But anyways, but there are some downsides to it. He goes on an interview. The interview didn't go the way he expected it, because when he was replaying the memories of the interview, him noticed the way how them respond to him at the end, like, when they done with the interview, and them being very polite and then, thank you for the interview and so on, we'll call you, don't call us, that kind of thing. Yeah, so it was like, yeah, this not sound too good at all and thing. So he goes home to his wife and thing, and we see that him even got through him memories for certain things, like some little things, like him want to remember certain people name, or him want to introduce himself to somebody when no know or whatever. Like he might say, oh, that person named so and so. Yeah, so he gets suspicious of him wife, because they have a little dinner party, and he gets suspicious of the wife behavior towards one of our friend was named Jonas, right? Because them kind of have like this like a playful relationship, or they used to talk and whatever and thing. They actually dated once upon a time, right? Which is the story that she told her husband initially, right? That them date for probably 1 week or something like that, and after that, the relationship done. there are some things that kind of unsettle Liam, right? Anyways, the party are going, certain things are exchanged over the table in terms of discussions and, general conversations. And that even cements it even more for Liam. When I time them, I might look back and I see where she talked to the man Jonas a certain way, and she said, this kind of look away. He brings it up initially when the party did over and apparently invite them, the man, for God somewhere, right? For God get some drinks and thing, right? Because I don't really know the guy like that. But apparently his wife knows him very well. So when he might realize certain things, I might go through memory and I might skip through and I try to figure out what go on now and thing. It makes him even more unsettled. He becomes even more unsettled each time him go back and I remember about certain little details and thing. And him, I might ask her certain little things about the same thing, and she said, "But tell her this already, Leah." That and he seems very paranoid at this point, and you're like, Liam, I be a very paranoid man. That's something I make him very paranoid. The green I make him very paranoid and thing. And they have this after they send one Jonas, they have this big conversation. They have a child, by the way, right? Important for what I'm going to talk about later. They have this conversation that develops into an argument where he calls her a B word, right? And she is like, she rewind for her green and show him say, yeah, me go remember this. Me go remember how you call me a B word. And she goes away. So, they go to bed, right? They do the do. They're gonna have sex together. But each of them having sex together are going through their grain. You don't actually see what's on their grain at that moment, But them have got through them grain because there's this point where you see them eyes, them kind of squirrel over, like, flashes on their eyes. So say they have got through them grain in them head. Because they can go through the grain on them head, in their head and also put it on screens, right? So they are having sex together, but they are remembering times, like them are relive different memories. So you're like, no man, something dysfunctional about this. All right, so the man come back in here, sleep that night, right? Because we see him sitting up, watching on a screen, going through the memories, the man thing. And, he might pick out some little things and I'm like, the babysitter comes in the morning now and the babysitter, greet him and thing and he's like, come here 1 second. I want you to give your opinion upon something. The babysitter was very like, I don't really want to get into this. Like, I say, yeah, I got through your grade. I don't really want to go through this, I think. If I got through your grade, though, and there's this funny little moment too, where he says something about the babysitter. When time you talk about people behind them back and you call them certain things, yeah. She sees that and she's like, okay, me done. And he's like, no, sorry about that. But another more you see, boy, you see this part. I'm like, okay, bossy, you just ruined the whole thing. But anyways, he goes through and she, asks her and thing. And then the wife comes before she's able to give a good answer, right? Or if you say, she not really want really say nothing against the wife neither, So she's being very diplomatic there, and end up, him and the wife again have a little argument again. Now, him go and confront the gentleman, right? Threatening him with one glass. Now, him did drunk. What's his name? Did drunk, right? The way him that stumble around and thing. And he goes to the Jonas yard and him basically have him down on the ground, right? And force him to delete every stored memory that him have of the man, of his wife, right? Because apparently he had a lot. For some reason, he had a lot. So later on now, they jump ahead because we don't get to see what happens after him they tell him to delete it, right? it looked like him delete it, but we don't see what happened afterwards, right? It must end up in a car because you see him crashed, right, into a tree basically. And him come out of the car and you can see the man look very mopey, like him sad, like the world weighing on him. And you wonder what did he do or what did he see or what happened, because me I feel say at that point say he must say kill the man, right? And the man did have one girl there with him. So me wonder if they do two of them in kill. I will see him going through his grain because him eye them start to glaze over again. I'm like, all right. Then he goes home. He sees his wife sleeping in the bed, and him going calmly and called to her. And then, him ask her a question that, brings up the whole thing again. And she's like, this again, why you do this? Why are you doing this? And him must say, he might tell her exactly what happened, because he might tell her, say, him go at the man yard, force him to delete the stuff. And he saw something while the guy was deleting. The guy that tried deleting in green, but he telling say, no, do it on the screen, right? So we can see where I do, can see actually do it. And he's like, is that our daughter, right? Or child, the child, I don't remember if it's a boy or a girl that they have, right? Is that my child? And she's like, yes, no, what's your child, and it's like, you're sure about that? And him start ask her if she and the guy never did there one at a time or whatever. And, him start to show her, say, him see the painting that they have up in the room, because they're in the bedroom, right? The painting that they have up in the bedroom, the same one in the man memory. So how the man would have the painting in a fee memory of them, right? And he saw something else where they were indeed doing the do. And it would not have happened, because if she is truthful, this would have happened long before he meet her. And they've never had a house there at the time. So she's lying. And he digs her on that, and digs her, asking her to show him the memory. Just show me, say, because she know I confess, say, yes, she and him did do it, and thing, but he wore a condom. I'm sure of it, she says. I'm sure. And he's like, all right, then show me the memory of him putting on the condom then. And she can't show him. She attempts to delete it, and then he get enraged and tell her, say, you never show me that. And she shows him. And so now we make confirmation saying a film baby. Yeah. So cut to the end where we basically see him wander in the house. He's alone, but brushing teeth alone and everything. But he has his memories of her in the good times, and the baby and all of these things, right? And that cause him even more pain. So what man do? Man take a razor and remove the grain. Yeah, he cuts into into his neck and take out the grain. Yeah. I mean, what do I have to say about this episode? But what I have already said. It's just crazy because, initially, as I said, this would be a great technology, a device that you're able to basically review your memories like video. Like watch video, right? And it's vivid, it's clear, right? And I like when you remember something and you're like, I try remember for sure if I that. No, it's clear, right? But the downside of that is that with memory like that, boy, some things can't go on, man. You do some things, you get not trouble. You do some things, you better be prepared for the consequences. Yeah. So that's my insights and interpretations of Black Mirror season 1. And now you see why this episode of the podcast going short, because the series here, is so involved. And so in order to prepare for this, I had to do a lot of digging. I had to, think about how it is that I wanted to convey this. And I hope that you watch Black Mirror and you come to the same conclusion. These are my theories and unresolved mysteries and plot points. So we know that Black Mirror season 1 consisted of 3 standalone episodes, and they would have been exploring technology's dark side. It sets in a tone of an anthology, right? Which is basically something that stands alone. There is no explicit crossover, right? Each episode is self-contained, right? So in episode 1, the national anthem, where the princess is kidnapped, we see where PM Michael Collo, he must have sex with a pig on live television to save the kidnapped princess. Now, the mystery around it would have been who orchestrated the stunt, right? The kidnapper vanishes, right, without a trace. Well, a little trace was there. And there is a lot of public trauma that lingers. So the theory is that it is satire on media sensationalization, right? So it hints at a lot of things that we know in reality, especially when it comes to the media and the way how things are handled and portrayed, by different media houses, right? And some might be leaning in one direction or the other, politically. And so they would have their own sense of outrage or none, if that is the case, right? In stark contrast to the way how some unbiased news organizations would be able to convey information or convey the news. Episode 2 would have been 15 million merits, and it's where we see it's basically explaining a gamified prison, right? Where persons are subjected to cycling and earning credits via that way, right? Now, being enters a talent show, right, where he ends up selling his dignity for fame, right? The mystery around it now is that it is the fate of rebels, people who have a cause to be put in out there into the ether, right? And essentially the system's way of protecting itself and absorbing dissent. Now, the theory is that it is showing where, propaganda is used as a tool to control, right? Because even though, propaganda can be used to do some unsightly things, right? This universe takes it to that level of saying, all right, we're going to use even the most innocent of meanings and change that into our own propaganda. And then there is episode 3, the entire universe of you, where we see Liam is obsessing over his wife's affair with this man, right? And all of this starts him down a journey of destroying his life. The mystery is that we have long-term social impacts of the grains, and there is no such thing as privacy anymore. When you might have a certain memory, you can think without anybody being able to see what you're thinking and know what you are actually, how you actually perceive something, right? But here we can see where that is totally gone, right? So the theory is that, it is some sort of surveillance, right? It's overarching, it's far reaching implications, you know what I'm saying? Because there is this point where he's going through immigration and they're basically saying, we need to see what you were up to. You know what I'm saying? We need to know, we're basically using your own memories to keep tabs on you. Yeah. There is some overarching theories, the whole thing that is established in season one that might play off in the other seasons. I haven't watched everything in its totality. I've watched a couple of them, being around the block with a few of them. So there are some things that kind of stands out to me that will be brought up back in those particular seasons and episodes. All right. The way how we have, the tech dystopia and the social control and the memory tech, right? Gonna be coming back up again in another way, And then there is even the writer's warning, right? There are some unresolved arcs that predict some real world surveillance, right? Slash cancel culture, right? And this will lead down a line where technology inevitably dehumanizes us all. So it's something that we really need to look into as a species. So season one would have just been 3 episodes. And as I mentioned and keep mentioning, there are several other seasons and episodes that are left with recurring themes and all of those things. So, share your own theories, your own moments that you favored, let me know of them in the comments. In this episode, we looked at Black Mirror, Season 1, Technology, Consequences, and the Dark Reflection of Society. And it is very obvious that reflecting on how our humanity has brought us to this point where we can be so aware of ourselves in such a way, writers can write about it and be like, hey, this is something about us. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's really, really bad. But it's always there for us as a reflection of what the possibilities are. Each time we look into the mirror and we can identify that we are looking at ourselves individually and what we are and who we are, we can determine whether we want to stay that way or we can make a change. Now, obviously, not everyone is able to do that kind of internal retrospection, but it's important that those of us that have that awareness, we can express those ideas, bring it to the full. Because if the ideas only stay in our heads, if we only can rap with the persons who already understand, then it's all for naught. Because there's no way to get it out to others. And this is why sci-fi television matters. This is why this podcast matters. And I'm not going to be like Bing and tell you that if you don't listen, then this podcast is going to die, because I don't believe that. I believe that this podcast will live on
as long as there is an ounce of reflection that we can see in the mirror, I believe that in history, there will be at least someone talking about something they heard, something they learned, something they saw. And maybe, just maybe, this podcast is a part of that. That is it. Our quest through the universe of sci-fi television continues, and the next great milestone awaits. 2,000 downloads. Your support is the force that fuels this journey. Share, follow, and let your voice echo through the stars. Until we meet again, may wonder light your path and curiosity be your guide.
This content is CAN credentialed, which means you can report instances of harassment, abuse, or other harm on their hotline at 617-249-4255 or on their website at creatoraccountabilitynetwork.org.